Hey guys, slightly more brief double bill of videos today because it's Christmas Eve. Hope you're all going to enjoy your Christmas tomorrow and enjoy the break. Just thought I'd have a quick run through of the stock side. So it's down just over 1%. So not a huge move. Been quite a sort of volatile week for some stocks. But yeah, most of mine are down. Sort of 1 or 2%, nothing particularly huge. Things like Silvergate Capital down in the ISA, but yeah, most of the other things sort of down 1 or 2%, nothing sort of particularly big, all except Vale, Rio Tinto, Glencore, Sylvania Platinum, and Shell. So a bit of a theme. Four of those five are commodity sort of mining companies, and Shell, of course, the big evil oil giant. So you can't exactly say I'm ESG focused, I guess, but that's what seems to be doing well and sort of helping me out. Another dividend from Shell, about £70. So yeah, not too bad. Moves though, my sort of tax loss harvesting on the house builders has sort of taken a little bit of a turn. So 2 days ago was my sort of date that I was able to sort of sell these two and switch back into Taylor Wimpey and Barrett. But I think I'm just going to hold off for a little while. They've sort of all of the UK housing stocks have just been sort of holding up really well, even though earnings estimates are sort of dropping dramatically, 30-40% drops for next year, and the stocks don't seem to have fallen at all. So I did say I thought this may have been the case before. The drops came before, the price drops came before the earnings drops, and maybe now they're sort of slightly more fairly valued. But yeah, obviously I'd taken those drops in price, and sort of now they could do well from here, of course, but I kind of think it's maybe time for a little bit more risk, sort of going into potentially going into the recession, and sort of at some point the Fed pivoting and sort of wanting to be risk on. So I sold Red Row and Bellway and have just sort of left most of that as cash. I did move 1,000 over to the ISA, but sort of most of that is cash. Could be withdrawing some of that for crypto purchases, but we'll see. So it was a little bit quiet on the news, really. I didn't mention the Fed dot plot. They do this sort of every other meeting, I believe, and this sort of gives their interest rate predictions for the next sort of few years and longer term. And this is up from last year. Obviously a sort of unanimous vote for where they were going to be in 2022, but next year has sort of gone up to 5.25 to 5.5%. I'm very, very sceptical that they're going to sort of do another full percent raise. Jerome Powell in his sort of meeting is indicating that they're going to carry on, but I sort of keep going back to their headline that they weren't going to raise rates at all until 2024. And yeah, they seem to be sort of quite happy to change direction on a dime. So yeah, I'm thinking this is jawboning, as they call it, more talk than actual substance, and they're just trying to curb inflation, partly by talk than more so than actual rate hikes. So yeah, maybe they get to 5.5%, but I think they could have sort of already put the US at least into a recession, if not sort of the rest of the world, with what they've done so far. So another percent on top of that would be sort of sledgehammer to crack a walnut, if you like. But we'll see where they go. Interesting spread sort of for the following years as well. One guy still at 5.75% on the sort of upper end for next year and 2025. So somebody really does have a wish to cause a mega depression. But on the low end, sort of 3.25%, and what is that, 2.5% in 2025. So yeah, you've got, what is that, 3.25% spread between top and bottom. So they really don't agree on the longer term future. And part of the thinking with money going into the ISA and maybe sort of taking on a little bit more risk is whether I get back into Tesla at some point. So I sold this at, I believe, around double this price quite a while ago. Didn't quite catch the top, sort of around $400, whatever it was, before the stock split, sort of around $1,200. But yeah, there you go. But yeah, it has come down quite a lot now. I believe Elon Musk sort of forecasting next year that they may, if the recession is sort of particularly bad, then they may be dropping prices quite significantly just to move cars. So you could see sort of higher volume and lower profitability, more akin to sort of the legacy auto companies. So yeah, there's a potential for sort of earnings estimates to come down. They have already been coming down a little, not too much, sort of 584 for next year, down to 544. Nothing too much. I believe that was 549. Yeah, just a day or two ago when I last looked. So they are coming down, 5-10 cents at a time. But yeah, you sort of look at how much they are still potentially growing, sort of doing a little discounted cash flow forecast, and even at sort of 20 to 25% growth in sort of revenue and profits, which is a lot less than they've been forecasting, still doesn't look a terrible hold. So I may sort of average into it if this is going to be a sort of £2,000-3,000 position. I may sort of put £1,000 in at a time and sort of give it another month or two and another 1,000 in, see what happens. So yeah, there's a thought. Certainly a lot of people are trading it. 166 million shares in volume. I believe Apple sort of has about 20 or 30 million. So yeah, interesting. You can see the drop here. Someone posted this on Discord, that the Tesla has dropped more from the high than basically all of the major car makers' market caps combined. Now worth sort of 435 billion. It's even less than that now. So they've lost a whole nother Stellantis since this graphic was sort of done. Just shows how sort of high values can change when we get into a bear market. But yeah, but looking at this, I believe a lot of these forecasts are sort of probably a little bit too bullish compared to where we're going to be next year. But this blog that I've been sort of following for a year or so now, sort of tried to map out the next 6 or 7 years of cash flows and profits and everything. It's very, very detailed blog. And yeah, he's sort of was forecasting about 16 billion operating cash flow this year, which seems to be near enough spot on. And this was sort of done early, or sort of late 2021, I believe. So pretty good forecast. I guess 2023 may be a little bit high, but if they're sort of going to get even close to anywhere near these numbers, then again, as I say, it doesn't look a horrendous buy. If you look on at a sort of price to earnings growth multiple rather than just price to earnings, sort of on a forward basis, then yeah, still looks okay. It's getting towards that sort of peg ratio of 1 if they were to sort of maintain this. And I noticed one of the sort of perma bulls on Twitter, Gary Black, sort of giving his catalysts going forward. So full self-driving beta, version 11 is released this month. Not sure I would see that as particularly big catalyst. I can't see that sort of getting approved for sort of proper use anytime soon, even in the next few years. But yeah, it's good news, I suppose, to sort of talk about for everyone. Fourth quarter deliveries will be coming out sort of in a few weeks. They're expected to be sort of record because they're pulling forward next quarter's deliveries. They always try and get the annual number high, so the fourth quarter number high. The Twitter CEO announcement, that sort of seems to be causing quite a bit of forced selling and sort of Elon selling and that sort of thing. He's now said when they get a new CEO, he will step down. So if they can sort of find someone, then that'd be good for him to sort of come back and focus on his main business, I think, is what a lot of people are getting annoyed about. Seems to be spending rather too much time on Twitter when sort of you would want him at the main company sort of going into a potential recession. The EV credit is sort of going into effect. I guess he's just saying that I thought this was a negative for Tesla from what I was reading, but he's saying maybe it'll just drive EV adoption, which I guess he thinks helps Tesla. Potential new, I guess, first quarter they could be announcing new gigafactories, UK and Mexico. I think this has been sort of slated as a buyback. I guess I was thinking this was a bit unlikely, but I guess with the price drop now, 10 billion spare cash that they have got would actually go quite far in a buyback, but I kind of think they could probably do with that cash if margins are going to be compressed. Middle of next year, Cybertruck launch. That does finally look like it's on the cards. Been sort of slated for the last couple of years and sort of delayed ever since he put that sort of ping pong ball through the window. And the $30,000 EV launch, the sort of Model 2 as they're talking about it, for mid-2024. I think that's probably a little bit early. We haven't even seen an official picture of it yet. And obviously we saw the pictures and we saw a Cybertruck sort of wheeled out years ago. So yeah, that's 18 months, probably a little bit too soon. But he gets, with all of these sort of catalysts potentially in the next year or so, $550 price target in the next 6 to 12 months. I think the next 6 months is probably a touch ridiculous. It's sort of, 4.5 times in 6 months if they're at sort of 120s now. Even a year, sort of 4x in a year potential, I guess. Never sort of say never with Tesla, but can't quite see that. But potential to make money, I guess, over the next year. If we do get a sort of Fed pivot and potential recession, people might even be just willing to pay, profits half, and people are willing to pay twice as much earnings because they're expecting coming out of a recession. Stock market always looks forward and sort of sometimes even bottoms before the start of a recession, or sort of certainly in the first quarter or two when it hasn't even been announced. US could be in recession now, and it doesn't actually get announced. By the time it does, they say, Q4 and then Q1 next year and Q2 next year are all the recession, but actually started in October. So, yeah, there's a possibility there. I'm actually looking, potentially buying some of this in the ISA, but I am keeping an eye on the options. Sort of been mentioning options recently, and sort of a January 2025 option for Tesla. I was looking to sort of spend about maybe $1,000 they are, which would sort of be 800 odd pounds, and that was sort of before, about a month or so ago, that was, you were having a bet on the price going above about $480 by January 2025. But that same option now, you're only betting on it going above about 350. So that's looking a little bit more promising. If Gary Black's anywhere close to his prediction, then that would be a hell of a buy for $1,000. So yeah, looking to sort of take on a little bit more risk potentially. Spreadsheet's crashed. But yeah, maybe not quite yet, but sort of in the next few months, could be sort of deploying some of this cash, or may just hold off, sort of rushing into anything. But yeah, let me know what you guys are doing, and like and subscribe. See you soon.